Curtis Institute thing, that really messed her up. But what she decided to do now that she was in Philadelphia, right? Her family's up there. She was like, yo, I'll just get me a few meaningful jobs and I'll still pay to take these lessons with the cat I was going to study with anyways, right? That makes sense. So she's in Philly. She's studying with this guy. One day, he hears her playing some gospel music, right? You know, her mom's a preacher. That's what she cut her teeth on, right? Was like blues. And so he tells her, he's like, yeah, you should totally forget the classical thing and do that, you know? And she was highly insulted, right? The reason being, Nina goes on record several times saying that she hated the word jazz. She wasn't alone in that. There were several cats from back in the day. Duke Ellington didn't like the word jazz. Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie didn't like the word jazz. Miles Davis didn't like the word jazz. And the reason why was because, once again, there's this term that people talk about at Kwanzaa, right? It's called Kujichagulia, right? It's Swahili for self-determination, meaning the ability for an individual, right, to define themselves, right? And one of the issues that exist in America in this larger racial dialectic is the reality that at one point in time, white people used to own black people, right? And sometimes white people still want to hold on to that attitude, and they want to define and dictate black stuff, right? The scholar Toni Morrison, scholar and writer Toni Morrison, she refers to this phenomenon as the white gaze, right? And so when we talk about the word jazz, all of the early jazz musicians, they were like, yo, stop being dismissive about the intellectual rigor it takes to create this art form. Like, we ain't making this by accident. You know what I'm saying? We've all, now I was born in 1985, so I know all of us in here have seen the old images in Hollywood with the dark-skinned dude holding the banjo, wearing the straw hat. You know what I'm saying? We've seen the Hollywood images of just like some random black dude walking up to like a trumpet and picking up and playing the most amazing stuff and then putting it down like, oh, you know, like Negroes are just made of magic. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and yeah, it is. It's freaking hilarious, right? But that's steeped heavily in scientific racism, right? And this is what, whenever Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie got together and they were creating bebop, it was a militant act. It was against everything, because scientific racism is all about intelligence, right? We've all, but we may or may not be familiar with it, but I'll hip you to it real fast. If you've ever seen like the different racial charts that show the different skull types. Now, it's been debunked. We know that it's pseudoscience, but it wasn't like there was ever an official apology, and it wasn't like all the books that were written were burned, right? Like, this information is still out there. It shows itself again. This is what the Supreme Court Justice, Scalia, is that his name? That's what he was talking about. You know what I'm saying? In his scathing remarks about black people not being smart. Like, this goes all the way back to a pseudoscience called phrenology, right? A great deal of this institutionalized racism is designed to superimpose inferiority on black people at the most basic of levels, right? And all them early jazz musicians said, to hell with that. And here's how I'll prove it. I'm going to make an art form so great that you can't deny it. So that's how come Nina hated the word jazz. She wanted her music to be referred to as African-American classical music. It makes sense, you know. Trumpeter Nicholas Payton, who's actually brought this conversation back to the forefront in the larger jazz pedagogical conversation. He says he likes his music to be referred to as postmodern New Orleans music. That's hip, right? That's hip. So yeah, that's the whole jazz piece. It's dismissive.